Hey guys, welcome back to another YouTube video here on my YouTube channel. Super quick video because I do have to go very soon, but I want to give you guys advice in order to fix some of the problems you might be having in FNCS. And one of the things that I noticed, at least people in my DMs have been complaining about, like, how do I win off spawn? How do I change this? How do I? That's exactly what we're going to be talking today, guys. The webcam's not on because the sunlight is glaring through my bedroom at 9 a.m. But either way, just a verbal lesson for today. We're going to be talking about 5 tips to win off spawn in FNCS. So what's the first tip, right? Let's get right into it because I don't have that much time. You guys don't have that much time, but I still want to give you guys advice and still want to get a video out for today. So let's talk about it, right? What is the first tip that I want to talk about? Probably one of the most important things, honestly. I'm just going to give it right away. I won't save it till the end. You need to look around, you guys, right? This is the very important aspect of off spawn. Like, why do we need to look around? It's information gathering, right? You're trying to get information. This allows you in turn to make better decisions, right? If you do this, then it becomes significantly easier to make better decisions. So why is that the case, right? If you sort of make decisions without information, you're sort of just poking in the dark. You're not actually basing your decisions off of anything. For example, let's say I'm gliding into Butterbun because this is where I land, right? Very simple example. When I notice this be uncon, like this is completely uncon, what I can do actually, instead of just turning around and landing here, right, I can land here with my duo, steal this loot completely, and then just dip out with the car. They can never chase me because they don't have a car themselves. At least maybe there's one in the back, but it's just difficult. So very simple example, like as I'm coming in, yes, you could look around and look if there's enemies that coming at your drop. That's the most obvious case. But what about uncon POIs? What about uncon Spider-Man? What about like people not landing in these areas? Like, how else are you actually supposed to know about these things unless you actually look? And in esports, in any game for that matter, it becomes very difficult to get any sort of information unless you make the actual effort to turn around while you're gliding and look in that specific direction. This is true for a lot of video games, not just Fortnite. And this is a pattern that I see all the time in esports. So right away, second tip, play around high tempo, okay? So play around high tempo, not necessarily volume of loot. So what do I mean by this? Because I'm using a lot of weird words here, right? It's very important to understand what tempo is to begin with. So let me just first explain tempo. Tempo in this case just means being ahead of the curve in terms of time, okay? That's the important word right here. It's an important keyword. Tempo equals being ahead in terms of time. Now, what do I mean by this? Because even this is not even a clear definition, right? I'll give you some examples, okay? Staying ahead of zone is good tempo, right? Because you have less to do on your to-do list. You look back, you're looking at everyone that has low tempo, bad tempo, because they're all the way back. They have a lot of stuff to do, right? And for example, let's use an off spawn example. Barrels, chug splash. Why is this high tempo, right? Llama, covert, any vault, really. Vault is really high tempo because you get an immediate boost in terms of loot, right? And it happens very fast. As soon as you open the vault, you're immediately in and you just get a bunch of loot. So then your loot goes from like staying down here and then it boosts up, right? Because it's like really quick. Whereas looting a POI sort of looks like this. Make sense? So this is significantly better. So something to understand about tempo, that's what I mean. So let's talk about an example of tempo, right? Let's say I come up with a plan with just like covert, where I have a duo land specifically here and I land here. Something literally random, right? Maybe I have a duo land here, I land here. Because we have chug splash and because that's gonna immediately help us in the fight, we're able to push chonkers right away with this sort of loot tempo, right? We have to understand there's not that many chests here, but the chug splash allows us to get so much loot so much quicker. If you think about chonkers, the outskirts is where all the tempo really is, right? If you go in here, yes, there's a bunch of loot, but you have to slowly go inside, pick it all up. And if you have chug splash, and what you can do actually, if you're a duo and you're landing on the outskirts, is player one lands here. This is just a pure example. I don't even know if this is a viable strat because maybe there's some problems with it, but just an example of tempo, right? Player one lands here, player two lands here, and you guys get all the chug splash, get up here, pop 5 of them to get full shield, and it's really, really fast because chug splash is fast and it's guaranteed cooler. It's actually something like 80% now, I believe. But either way, you get up to this mountain, chug splash really, really quickly, and you try to out tempo the enemy by just pushing them with full shield, right? So come up with these sort of strategies with your off spawn. See if there's something applicable like that. For another example immediately is that there's barrels in this part of condo. You could land this side, take the barrels, and then look to push someone, right? There's these simple examples, and this could totally help you. Barrels here, right? Obviously this loot is not that good, and there's also barrels in the basement. So is that worth it? No, because these guys have barrels as well. So actually in that case, because this is equal tempo to this and it has more loot, it has more volume of loot, so I'll just land here. Make sense? So there's simple things that you have to sort of analyze about your drop slot and think about off spawn that way. Okay, so what's the next tip? Next tip is don't just farm wood because it's the fastest, right? Because there's application purposes for hard mats to off spawn. For example, let's say you get beamed and you need like 6 builds metal to actually build a metal wall, and they're like pretty far away, but if you build in wood, they're just constantly going to break it over and over and over. So there is applications for hard mats off spawn. Don't just get 500 wood and stay 0 bricks, 0 metal. Like that's actually not the correct way to think about it, right? Because everyone thinks that you should just get the highest volume of mats, but that's not necessarily true, right? Get brick and metal here and there just because it's still good. And actually brick is a really good hard mat to farm, because usually if you just go to the outskirts, for example, I'll just keep giving you examples because I think that's the best way to do it. For example, right, there's a lot of brick like here, here, and here on the outskirts of Sleepy, right? So if you loot this and then quickly go back here, farm this, and then push, you'll probably have like 300 400 brick to use, and that can absolutely help you because there is an application purpose for hard mats. You just have to make sure you farm it. Understand? Next tip, very simple, rapid fire, guys. Figure out beforehand what mats give the most. When I say mats, I just mean like furniture, for example, or like the things in your drop that give you the most metal. Like, don't try to sort of wing it. Actually go into a pub or an arena and figure out, okay, what's the fastest metal here? After I clear my off spawn and win it, what's the fastest metal? What's the fastest brick? Well, how can I make this more efficient and by a significant amount, right? Don't worry about the stuff that sort of make it efficient by like 1 or 2 or 3 seconds. Don't overthink that part. But how can I cut 30 seconds off my off spawn? And if there's something like that you're missing out on, that is a huge deal, because that could be the difference in a surge game. Maybe if you make semis or heats or anything like that, that could be the difference in getting a particular mountain that you need in a surge game, because in a surge game you need to get those mountains. So the faster you loot off spawn, the better it is, right? So figure out beforehand what things give the most amount of mats, right? And you can just sort of shave off 20 seconds, 30 seconds. And then again, like I said before, don't worry about the 1 to 2 second improvements, right? Because again, it's not really about just being as efficient as possible. It's being efficient to cut off this sort of significant time, and these milliseconds don't matter. So don't worry about that. A lot of people think when I say be efficient, it means like literally watch out for your slight movement mistakes because you're wasting 10 milliseconds here. Like no, that doesn't matter. Oh, in the grand scheme of things, that genuinely makes no difference. So don't worry about that. I'm talking about this, right? Because if you're farming metal and you're hitting something that gives you like +2, that's not ideal, right? Look for something that gives +6, +7, especially in a POI with metal. Like for example, in Sleepy, you could be going here and farming everything inside that gives metal, and then like going somewhere else. I have no idea, right? Like you might have not a good idea of like where the metal is, but there is metal along these edges that you should be farming. It's not just about how much each hit gives you, because if you think about it, the edges give you a lot overall, right? Because there's a lot of volume, and actually the time in between the hits. So after you break this section of the metal on the edge of the roof, the next section is right beside you, so you can keep swinging. You get to keep swinging, right? So consider that as well. That actually adds up the speed in a significant manner as well. So right, just make sure that you understand, like maybe this gives like 10 metal per hit, but then the next thing that hit gives 10 metal per hit here. It's not worth it to rotate all the way there. That can shave off 10 to 20 seconds if you sort of avoid those sort of situations. And just maybe this gives 5 per hit on the roof, but it's right next to each other the whole way. So you can just get 500 metal like this if you constantly farm. And usually if you're farming this stuff, by the way, on the edge, chances are you've cleared your POI first. That's what you should do. Understand? And then that can make you efficient. You're leaving out of spawn much faster. Now this one's important. Notice the wording I choose here, right? Coordinate with your teammate. This does not necessarily mean you have to land close. Obviously some split drops have that, but just make sure you sort of come up with a plan to regroup or at least coordinate with them, right? You could do some sort of thing where like you have an angle, right? Like one guy lands here and then one guy, I don't know, let's say there's chests here. Quick example, right? Let's say there's a bunch of chests here. One guy lands up here on the hill. These guys who land here, enemies can't really push him, right? That's an example. Obviously there's no loot here, so that doesn't work, but then this way you can sort of pinch them and make sure they never leave this building easily, right? They can't cross here because you see them, and then they can't really go here into this next building because you see them again. And it's just really easy to like sort of pinch them that way. Simple example. Obviously that doesn't necessarily work in Sleepy because again there's no loot here, but you can apply that same sort of concept somewhere else. You don't necessarily have to land close to your teammate, you just have to coordinate with them. That's a big difference, huge difference in wording there. Either way guys, I do have to go, but thank you guys for watching this video, and I very much appreciate your time. Hope you guys succeed in qualifier 2. I will be making more videos talking about different things you can do to improve, so look out for those. But either way, I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.